Hello and welcome back to the third tutorial, which actually isn't a tutorial at all. Actually, it's just a couple of tips. I realised that, again, having spoken to a couple of people in the week, that I do things just slightly differently. For some of you this will not be new at all, but for some of you it obviously is. So I thought it would be quite a good idea just to show you what I do with a couple of things. One of them is the way that I interline a curtain. So following on from my interlining tutorial about how I join it, how I actually put it into the curtain. A lot of people, it seems, put their fabric on the table first and then they're interlining on top. And I do it completely the other way around, and I always have done. And it stems back from when I used to make bed throws, because I was terrified of actually having a pin in the middle of my bed throw. I don't make those anymore, I sub them all out. But it all comes from there. So what I do is I put my interlining on the table. It's got a couple of pluses actually when you put your interlining on the table first and then your fabric on top. Not only do you have all your pins on the outside, so there's none of this, oh God, there's a pin left in it, I've got to try and get it out. But if you're working on something very fine like silk, it's much easier to smooth your main fabric over the top of your interlining than the other way around. You can often have your fabric rucked, you don't even know it's rucked underneath. And that can, you only discover that when you're about to put your lining on, which is a bit of a nuisance. So I work on quite a narrow table, so I like to have my clamps, holding my interlining. But I guess on a wider table you can still do that because it's going to be bigger than your actual table. But if you can't, it doesn't matter. It can just rest on there, or you can put weights on it, or however you normally do it. I think it's fascinating looking at how other people actually go ahead and do all their prep work. So I've got my interlining on the table, and what I do is I have my leading edge seam, because that's the one I want to match up. All the rest can move off. This is a 3-width curtain, it's big, and so it's not going to match every single seam, but I want it to match that first one, because when you pull it across and the daylight comes through, that's the one that I want to be correct, that first seam. Everything else can move off. So this is my first seam. It's a 3-width curtain, as I say, so my first width is here, and the lower part of my curtain is going to be at this point here. So I'm just going to move the camera so you can see what I'm doing, and it's pretty self-explanatory really. So what I do is I'll have that first seam married up on the seam of my interlining, and then I will obviously pin it so I keep it all in place. This is a linen, so it's a bit stretchy. So I'm going to just do this quickly because, as I said, I don't want this to be a long tutorial because it's probably not going to be very relevant for a lot of you. But for some of you that are new into the trade, or even people that have done it the opposite way around for years, it might well be revolutionary. And then I come across and I've obviously got my seam. Now it's here and I can overlock it, and then I bring it back over and I move it across backwards and forwards and get all the rest of it sorted out. But the interlining goes down first, and then I flip it so I can put my lining on top. And that way I can keep this really nice and smooth. So I know that I haven't got any rucks of it underneath, because when you're working with something thicker on the top, you can't always tell if something is rucked underneath. It takes an awful lot of toing and froing. The other thing I'm going to mention is linings. So let me just move you across a little bit so I can see you. I had somebody the other day who said, one of the things that really gets to me, it happens sometimes more than it should, is that I get two left linings. So I said to her, how do you manage to do that then? So she said, well, I've obviously done the hem on the other end. I try and mark it and all the rest of it. So what I do, let me just bring my lining over. This is a 3-width lining. So what I do is I join the whole thing. I do the whole thing. I do my hems, everything, and then I can cut it up the middle, and I've got a left and a right. I can't go wrong. Doesn't matter whether I've got 5 widths, 3 widths, whatever it is. That's how I do it. The way that makes that easy is, she says, looking around to see if I can find one, is to buy my lining creased and lapped. Creased and lapped means that it's folded, basically. A heck of a lot easier to cut and manipulate and have on my table if I haven't got rolls and rolls of it. This is much, much easier to do. Plus, I can use my square, if you can see this. Whoop. I can use my square and I can get it nice and straight, and it's almost to the end, you know, and I can follow that. That's absolutely fine. So easier to cut, easier to store, easier to maintain, and the great thing about it is that when you use it, you've obviously got a crease down the middle. So when you're cutting, or when you're having to interlock or put a chain stay or whatever you're doing, you've got something to follow for the centre, for the half width. So that's really easy. So once I've joined all of my lining and done the hem and machined that, the last thing I do is cut it in half. And I've never had a problem with having two lefts, because, you know, that's what I do. And actually, to have 5 widths of lining, if you've got 2.5 width cutting, it's not really a big deal, because you know it's lining at the end of the day. You don't have to you know, treat it with kid gloves particularly. So those are 2 little tips. They might help, they might not, but as I say, this week it's obviously helped a couple of people, so it might help a few more. So that is my very quick 3rd tutorial, and hope it's been of some help. Let me know how you get on if you're going to try it and it's something new. Take care now. Bye bye.